Well, hello! Today I'm going to review the SSL B-Dynamics compressor / gate for the API 500 system. And to be honest with you, I wasn't interested in doing this review because I started this channel to do gear reviews about stuff that was flying under the radar. And let's be honest, SSL is legendary Champions League status when it comes to the audio industry. I don't think that there is a more well-established brand than SSL, apart from maybe Neve and API, but when it comes to British consoles, the SSL 4000 is just legendary. In fact, when I was 11, I saw a brochure of the SSL AWS 900 and I didn't know what this thing was doing nor what it could do, but I knew from that moment on that I wanted to become a part of this industry. And that feeling got even stronger when I saw an interview of Daft Punk in front of an SSL 4000, and from that moment on I think I fell in love with the 4000 console. The SSL B-Dynamics is a mono API 500 module, meaning you need two in order to operate it in stereo. Apart from that, the parameters are quite straightforward. You have two separate sections. You have the compressor section at the top, and down at the bottom you have the gate / expander. Looking at the parameters of the compressor, everything is quite familiar. We have separate ratio settings. We can even disengage the compressor by using the out option, and we have an de-esser setting as well, which is the DS on the right hand side of the ratio, which will then engage the de-esser. And then we have a threshold, which sets the threshold for the compressor. Next to that, we have the high pass filter for the sidechain input, and that will give you a sidechain high pass filter of 6 dB around 185 Hertz. So you can stop pumping with the compressor by engaging that sidechain high pass filter. And then there is the last setting for the compressor, and that is the release. So you have several release settings, even an auto setting and a special DS mode for the release, which is roughly from 30 to 50 milliseconds. That's what the manual states. If you have seen my video of the SPL Iron, what you would do is you would start to work with the compressor by driving level into that, because you don't have a separate attack setting. So in order to make it more snappy, you will need to drive it more, or you will use the gate, which I come to now. The gate is actually something I was really surprised by, because I never used a gate in the analog world. I have to say that this gate is absolutely amazing, because it is such a funky gate, and by that I mean it's really snappy and it makes just so much fun to use it on percussive material. On drums and electric guitar, I just adore this gate. So you have the setting for the gate, which is here, and that's the range, and the range actually sets the amount of reduction or expansion, depending on whether or not you are using the expander or the gate. And then you have the threshold for the gate / expander, and then you have separate release settings. Really, really cool. And of course, you engage or disengage the B-Dynamics by using the in button. Yeah, that's it. Really straightforward. And let's head over to some audio demos. I mean, it's from the visual feedback, it's not doing much, but actually the type of compression that you're already witnessing is crazy. And yeah, we have a drastic drastic change in volume as well. But you can make it really pump. And yeah, just, I love it. It's such a cool tone. Really starts to grab the transients. So I had the sidechain high-pass filter engaged. Now I disengage it, and you can see, because now also the kick drum is within the signal path, or sorry, the detection path of the compressor, you even get more compression. The SSL B-Dynamics is modeled after the compressor that is found in the SSL 4000B. So now you would probably like to ask me, well, how truthful is it modeled after the SSL 4000B? Let me put it this way. I have sat in front of an SSL 4000 exactly 2 times, and I've mixed on an SSL 4000 exactly 0 times. So I don't know. But what I can say is that this compressor is not for the faint of heart. This is not your compressor for mastering or subtle jobs. This is a kick-ass compressor that is smacking the hell out of your mid-range, that is adding a lot of color. If you have a signal that is flat and that needs excitement and color and smack and punch, the SSL B-Dynamics is the exact compressor for that. There are some areas where I would use it on the master bus, especially on like disco and soul tracks that need more oomph in the mid-range, but my God, this compressor is so aggressive and is so in your face. It's just sometimes laughable, but in a good way. It just makes so much fun to have this module. It's crazy. It's really, really cool. But forget about gate staging, forget about matching levels, pre and post compression, forget about all of that. You go into that compressor and then you smack the hell out of it and yeah, compensate level changes afterwards. And sometimes it's so aggressive that you will have to compensate for the added mid-range and treble because it's so much. So the SSL B-Dynamics is more than just a compressor. You also have a gate. And in this day and age of zero noise and a noise floor that you can't hear, gates have become kind of irrelevant in the analog domain, right? But this is far more than just a normal noise gate because it's actually so funky that you can use it as an envelope shaper. Let me show you what I mean. So I have this drum here, and this is very bland, nothing special. Yeah, it's just what I have here. So let me engage the B-Dynamics. And already, you know, just by using the compressor, you have this lovely, lovely attack to it. But I can control that a little bit by using the sidechain filter. But now let me show you what I can do with the gate. I can actually make the sound shorter and more funky, which gives me a more pronounced sound. You hear that? Just by using the gate and the way that it cuts off the end tail of the sound, it actually starts to swing a little bit more. Right? So you have this really bland sounding drum kit, and now so it allows me to actually make the drum sounds more groovy, and on a drum bus this is absolute killer, because sometimes you have these sounds that really annoy you, maybe because there's a tail end of a reverb or something that just washes the transients and loses the definition of the drum kit. And here I can just set it to whatever I want to, right? I can even enhance it so that it becomes actually ridiculous. But depending on the material that you're using it for, this could be crucial for your drum kit, right? So test it out and just start to use it for whatever you like. I mean, this is obviously too crass, but you could use that in a parallel setup. But I go back to that one. You hear this instant groove that comes out. And because the way the gate interacts, it becomes like an transient shaper, sort of like a groove editor, like a really cool, funky tool. Bear in mind, this is obviously now, for the sake of demonstration purposes, a little bit too extreme, but I wanted to show you what you can actually do with a gate. And I never realized that. Normally I don't use gates because I work in such a low noise environment that I don't use gates. But for this setup, this is not only great for tracking, but amazing if you have a drum bus and you want to shape out a little bit more the sounds. Rather than trying to play around with release settings of the compressor, you actually can use that as well. Another sound where the gate really comes in handy is when it comes to funky guitars. I have this demo here. And there are these strokes, these kind of like ghost notes that you have in between those major chords, right? How about we emphasize those as well, and in the context of a groove or rhythm section, this could become like a percussive element. You hear that? How the ghost strokes become way more pronounced and way more in your face, and especially in combination with the compressor you get this like lovely tone to it. This mid-range, in-your-face sound. Let me disengage the sidechain. Of course, there are volume changes right now, but listen to the transients and how the plucks become more pronounced and way more like you would put a transient shaper to that. And the way that you create the space in between those notes by using the gate. Your ear starts to really hear those new sounds and it starts to groove way more for the ears. Again, really crass settings, but for the sake of showing the compressor, this is absolutely lovely. You hear me now that I'm enjoying this compressor really, really much, but there are some downsides to it, okay? So the first thing is the high pass filter of the sidechain. The sidechain, when engaged, cuts the signal under 185 Hertz. That is a little bit too high for me because there's only two settings. You know, there is the setting where when you want to compress, you have the kick drum or you don't have the kick drum. So either it's a lot or it's not that much, but more mid-range. So I would have loved to have more control when it comes to the sidechain filter. But I know that the original 4000 never had a sidechain filter, so yeah, that's what you're getting. The other thing is the LED gain reduction meter, because this thing is in fact useless, because it starts to signal the 3 dB range of gain reduction, but actually even if there is no signal, LED signal, you're still compressing a lot. And I hope you are hearing that in the demos, but yeah, you compress already. The next thing is it's not really flexible when it comes to the attack times, because there are no attack times. You only have release times and that's it. And you have an auto release and yeah, good luck with that. But I'm joking, it's so much fun to use this. You are usually going into the B dynamics with a threshold parameter and then you are leveling it. Many reviewers mentioned that you need a lot of input volume in order to make this module sing, and they are right. At least 19 dB of reference level is required in order to drive this module. I would advise you to go really high into that module. In fact, I'm going into the SSL B dynamics with such a high volume that I need to actually decrease the input volume with my CL EQ1 afterwards in order to not overdrive my stages afterwards. So keep that in mind. One thing I really wanted to try out was the master bus, and I know the B dynamics is not intended for master bus purposes. This is a compressor that is well equipped for tracking. Just because of the texture of the B dynamics, I wanted to try out how this would sound on, yeah, more like disco tracks. And I have this one disco track where I wanted to try it out. This is a classic track where you have a lot of smooth mid-range and you want to usually emphasize that mid-range. So I start out with a really subtle compression, and it's a winner. Of course, it's louder again, but the mid-range is so lovely. You get the snap from the kick drum, from the claps. It just sounds so much more pleasing to my ears. The only downside to that is because the B-Dynamics enhances your mid-range and your treble, you will sometimes have to readjust your EQ settings pre or post the B-Dynamics. So sometimes you will find yourself, the more you compress, you will start to like set like different treble settings again, just because you don't want to have this like really unpleasant treble. But in this case it makes a whole lot of sense, but that is something that I witness. Sometimes you will have very aggressive upper mid ranges sometimes, but yeah. Such a lovely tone. Okay, now it starts to overcompress a little bit, but you get the idea. Let me engage this sidechain. What is this compressor good for? Like I said, kicking ass, smacking the hell out of signals, and of course this thing sounds great on drums. I mean, what else? On drums it's amazing. It will give you that mid-range that you want. And I've heard some G-Comp style compressors, and this definitely is in that ballpark area. Smacking the hell out of the mid-range and just gluing everything together, but it's really aggressive, but it does it amazingly well. And if you like that kind of sound, then you can always go for a dry-wet parallel compression setting, New York style compression, and then you're good. Okay, that's my review of the SSL B-Dynamics, an API 500 module that I never wanted to review, but actually enjoying much more than I thought. It's so cool to have such a beast of a compressor in my arsenal, because it's just so ridiculous in so many regards, and it's so much fun. It's really cool. I'm just surrounded mostly by mastering gear, and as much as I love the control and the details, it's cool to have a device that is just aggressive and adds character. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about the SSL B-Dynamics, let me know in the comment section below, and I see you in the next video. Bye.